comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is good.
And you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. I'm gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
Hello, everyone. So I'm back, and I just had some things to rant about. So it's kind of like, well, I have this thing, this series, and, you know, I mean, it was generally, the first episode was generally liked, I think. You know, I would assume so. I mean, you know, people watched it, didn't do much else. Maybe you should, you know, like it if you liked it, so I know, and comment if you liked it, so I know. Or if you didn't like it, so I know. But, you know, the reviews, so that means clearly people were interested in me ranting, so I decided I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do episode 2 of this rant series On My Mind, which is what I did last time. So yeah, let's begin. I got a few things which I wanted to talk about, and so I just thought this would be a perfect time to do it. So the first thing I want to talk about, and we'll see how much of an angry rant this ends up being. It'll probably end up being one, because it's something which I feel very personally about, and that's about Miss Marvel. So recently, there were a bunch of people coming out with these articles, and I love when people come out with articles where they kind of summarize things so that it's easy for me to understand. And so people are kind of talking about this proof, in a sense, that Miss Marvel is going to have a new power, which is essentially and someone on Twitter said this the best, like Star Sapphire from the Green Lantern comics, except for Miss Marvel. And now what essentially this power they're talking about is this thing that she'd be able to create things with her, should have bands that would create, like, you know, a sword and a shield out of purple energy, and that she can, like, you know, create things out of purple energy as part of her power. Along with her stretching, so that they don't have to stretch for every action sequence, because that would be expensive. That was the kind of rationale the article laid out. Now, can I explain something? Look, this character has been around for, granted, not a long time, but at the same time, a character who's worked really well, because the character doesn't have, you know, immense powers. It's not like, you know, her powers are vast and can change and can make her better, right? Like, she can stretch, she can shrink, she can grow, and you can play around with, you know, her kind of stretchy aspect, so to speak. But that, you can't just change a character. I mean, you can change a character, but it's unnecessary, right? It's not like, you know, you're developing the powers. Like, for example, you look at Miles Morales' Spider-Man, right? Yes, he has all the powers of Spider-Man, but he also has, you know, camouflage and shock, right? You know, those 2 extra powers. And so, you know, is he the same character as Spider-Man? No. But does he kind of have, you know, a developed set of powers? Yes. And can a character, you know, develop new powers in terms of context and make that make sense? Yes. And can you change stuff about a character, you know, especially because the MCU does do that a lot, and I'm not going to, you know, argue against that. They do, you know, give character powers. They kind of, especially because sometimes the comics are vague in terms of powers of character. But do you need to make someone more powerful, especially someone who's supposed to be a much more grounded hero? Because I feel like the reason they would do this, theoretically, if they do this, which is not obviously confirmed yet, but if they do this, I feel like the most logical reason in terms of why they do this is to make her more powerful, right? But why does she need to be? Like, you aren't giving Daredevil super speed and the ability to shoot webs and, you know, the ability to shoot lightning blasts out of his hands, because this is the other thing, right? Which I feel like Marvel gets stuck in so often. You have these characters who can shoot beams out of their hands, right? You got Scarlet Witch shoots beams, Doctor Strange shoots beams, Iron Man shoots beams, hell, Black Panther was even shooting beams, you know, in a sense for a bit, you know, or they're shooting energy or whatever, you know. Shuri shoots beams, Captain Marvel shoots beams, you know, all these people shoot beams. And, you know, it's great. But at the same time, it's kind of like, can we not have power? Thor shoots beams, you know, all these guys shoot beams. So can we not have characters who don't shoot beams? Like, you know, you can make this a bit more creative in terms of, you know, the way you use these characters, and then you aren't by accident, even if it's accidental, you don't end up, you know, having this situation where, you know, she's you know, where, you know, it ends up being a, you know, 2 people shooting beams at each other for an entire action sequence, right? Because, you know, with powers like stretching, you have so much more ability to change kind of how they do it. And if you want to do something with light energy in terms of a stretchy person, when Mr. Fantastic shows up, that's the perfect opportunity to do this. But it feels like, and again, I don't know how they're going to do this, so it's very likely, because it's Marvel, and I do still trust them, that if they do this, they'll do it right, and it won't seem forced. But at the same time, I don't want it to be a cheapening of the character to give her more powers, and without a logical reason to do that, right? Like, how do you explain any human who gets the stretchy powers, but then also gets magical bracelets? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. Now, can it be something maybe she gets at the end? She steals someone's magical bracelets, you know, the villain, maybe one of the villain's magical bracelets, and uses them for herself, or someone gives them to her. Sure, you can do that, but to make her powers kind of include things like that, just naturally, doesn't make much sense to me, because I feel like, you know, you have a character who's just so good already. Why ruin that with, you know, putting more powers, especially when her powers already are unique enough? And let's be honest, Disney doesn't have, and Marvel doesn't care much about the budget at the end of the day. And on top of that, by the way, The Flash. So The Flash, obviously, is not the most high-budgeted show in the entire universe. But Elongated Man was a character who had a long run on that show, a few seasons at least, of the episodes, right? And especially that last season that they just finished, before this new one started. Elongated Man had like a whole arc, you know, more episodes than the entire show of Miss Marvel will have. And in that arc, he used his powers. You know, you don't have to always use your powers, right? You know, the punching, kicking thing still exists, but they use the powers on that low budget show. So why can't they, you know, is it too expensive? It's not too expensive on The Flash, which is a lower budget and lower quality than, you know, a Falcon, the Winter Soldier, or WandaVision, and obviously Miss Marvel will be in that category, but it's too expensive and you have to give her more powers there. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You know, if you're going to do a character, do them at least somewhat right. Like, don't give them a new power just for the sake of giving them a new power and make them more powerful, right? Now, again, if it works in the story, I'm not complaining. But if it's just for the sake of, you know, doing something, you know, giving this character more power, you know, it doesn't make sense. Like, why should she be able to create things out of energy? It's not her powers, right? It's not even like an adaptation of her powers. Not like, you know, Spider-Man, again, you can make the argument that you know, Miles Morales and Spider-Man having those different powers makes sense because, you know, that's the powers of some spiders have the ability to do those things, right? It's not even like it's a development of her powers. As an Inhuman, she has the power to stretch herself and elongate herself. That's her power set. It's not a development of it for her to be able to create energy. It would just end up being the way to make her more powerful. You know, like, again, and a lot of the times, like Thor, like Captain Marvel, like Shuri, like all these people, it makes sense, you know, for that to be the power set. But just for the sake of it, it doesn't make sense. And you can go back, and the one example which I'm going to use now is Cloak and Dagger, right? Because in Cloak and Dagger, Tandy, who's Dagger, you know, initially in the comics, her powers were just kind of really throwing light daggers, right? There wasn't much more to it than that, you know, initially, right? The show kind of allowed her to do more, and they allowed those two characters for the time that they were on the show, right, to do more in terms of their powers and evolve their power set a little bit. And that's different because you're evolving a power set which already exists. You know, you're using some aspects of the power and you're evolving and making it more, you know, be that cloak or be that dagger and the kind of evolution of their powers. But here you're giving her an entirely new power, and it seems to be from the start. Again, I don't know how they're going to do this, but it seems to be a new power from the start, which doesn't make any sense with her old powers and feels just like it's an excuse for them to basically, you know, do something different. And so it just doesn't make sense. Like Marvel obviously understands the importance and the significance of this character, right? But like, it's like you wouldn't, like, just like in the same way that people who are like, oh, sure, it should just be Ironheart. Like, you shouldn't just give somebody, you know, powers or something because, you know, maybe it would work, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, because I don't think there's much else in terms of that to talk about, is this idea of this recent lawsuit, which has taken place. And then I believe the Disney did countersue. And this lawsuit was from the people who made Predator movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, also known as Mr. Freeze. And these people basically are saying, we should, from the brief reading, I'm going to have to read the legal documents and whatnot in detail later on, but from what I understand, they are suing to kind of keep the rights of Predator, and Disney obviously is trying to avoid them getting these rights. And I just feel like, people at some point have to realize that unless you have a way to, especially because, again, from what I understand, they have no legal options really in terms of logic, because they sold their rights to Fox, and again, I kind of just skimmed the stuff. I kind of skimmed the agreement and stuff, but it seems like, from what I understood, and again, I could be wrong, so don't take my word 100% for this, but it seems like they just kind of said, they kind of skimmed the just by skimming the document, it seems like they sold the rights to Fox in the 80s or whatever when the first Predator movie came out, and Fox helped them create and distribute all of these movies, right? And then Fox sold itself to Disney, which means, therefore, the rights should now be in Disney's control. And, I don't understand why. Well, first of all, why would you want to get rid of take your rights away from Disney? Because if anyone's going to do your stuff properly, it's Disney. Let's be honest. No other studio is going to be as good with your content as Disney. But besides that, is this just a hating on Disney kind of situation? Because it feels like, there's no real reason to do this. It's not like Disney's, I don't think, and again, I could be wrong, there could be something which I'm missing, but I don't think Disney's, not paying you for it. I don't think they're going to kind of, you're not going to get, I'm sure you're going to get royalties from everything because of the creation of it. I'm sure there are other parts of this deal which exist, which, you're still going to be making money, like George Lucas, right? George Lucas is still making money off Star Wars even after he sold it to Disney. I don't know if it was you wanted it Fox, but now Disney, you don't want it to be kid-friendly. I don't know what the real problem is, and again, I'm going to have to do some more research into that before I know for sure what the real problem is, but it feels like, from the surface view, that it's just an excuse to fight Disney and just, kind of be try to champion against the big bad corporation, and it just doesn't make any sense, because not only in terms of, and let's be honest, Disney not giving up these rights, these were one of the biggest prizes in Fox, right, when it comes to getting them in terms of IPs. It was the Alien Predator kind of IP which existed, along with, X-Men, Home Alone, and those kind of IPs. And so Disney's obviously going to pour the money needed into this. Plus, it seems like the law's all on Disney's side. So I don't think this makes much sense. And let's be honest, you also don't want to make Disney angry, because, if you want to work in Hollywood, you have to keep Disney on your good side, because Disney, frankly, owns the bunch of profitable franchises. If you have and plus, let's be honest, if you talk to Disney, I'm sure if you had aspirations of doing a Star Wars movie, that they would give it to you at this point. I feel like there's much more, and also Disney does treating their creators with respect, of the content, for the most part at least. And so I don't think they would be against, either royalties going to the people, or, giving them creative control. You look at what they're doing with Percy Jackson. Rick Riordan has complete creative control over it. They don't control anything, right? They let the creator kind of have that freedom a lot more than most studios do, because they do have this trust of their creator. Now, again, in Marvel, for example, there has to be some creative control because of the universe, but, if they basically, if you're kind of given a movie, they'll give you the ability to do it, unless you do something which is very, very bad, right? Or if it's very out of touch, or, if there's something wrong with it, then they may look at this and say, okay, well, we don't know if we can put this out either because of our brand or whatnot. But I feel like, if you're picking a fight for no reason, it's not in your best interest, especially if because it doesn't look like they have not the financial resources, nor the legal arguments, enough legal arguments to really make this something, to whatever their end may be, publicity. If their end's publicity, then yeah, you're going to be able to do that. But even then, Disney is going to try to end this as quickly as possible. But if your goal is to win, I don't think it's happening with a big corporation behind you. If you're angry about the performance or the quality of the last Predator movies, because, again, not being an expert on Predator, I don't believe they were very good movies, in terms of what I've heard, at least. Again, that wasn't Disney, that was Fox, so it's not like, again, new company, new thing. And then one of the arguments Disney kind of made in terms of this was, we're sinking money into this new Predator movie. So, let us finish this. We're already invested into this franchise. Let us finish this. So I honestly, I don't even know why. There'll be, obviously the internet will be the kind of place where you'll have the people who are a large portion of people who will kind of be, oh yeah, down with Disney, but at the end of the day, in the reality of the world, Disney's going to win. I don't see a world where Disney doesn't win, especially because it's not like there's many legal arguments against Disney for having this ability, besides maybe I don't like it very much, besides the people kind of saying I don't like it very much. But that's really it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So this is about at 15 minutes, and because I don't do much editing, this will probably be around where it's at. But yeah, let me know what you thought down below. What do you think about all these issues? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you like this series, and I'll keep it going. I mean, I'll probably keep it going anyways, but it's always good to show the liking support. And then, you can comment your opinions on this and on the series. This kind of just happens when I get angry about something, or I have very strong feelings towards something, and I just kind of decide to rant for 15 minutes. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching or listening, I guess. And bye-bye.